Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to MEDays once again, and thank you for making it to our panel. Today, we're going to be focusing for this panel on tourism, hospitality, and aviation industries. We are looking at exactly what innovative priorities and long-term strategies are shaping up these industries for a reboot. And in that context, we'll also look at challenges that have been affecting these industries, specifically through the pandemic and post-pandemic. With us today is a number of industry specialists from across these industries, starting with the hotel industry, Raul. So initially, we're going to start with introducing each panelist. And Raul, if you can start to introduce yourself, give us your title, and tell us why you get up every morning.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Raúl González. I am the CEO of Barceló Group. Barceló is a Spanish group. We have two main divisions. One is the travel division. The other one is the hotel division. We are the leaders in the tourist sector in the Spanish market and Portugal. And when I go up in the morning, I try to improve the happiness of the people. I think that I want to say that the hotel industry, the trend in the future will be not accommodation sector. I think that will be the happiness must be the clear reason for our industry.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And moving on to Fatimatu, if you can please introduce yourself, your title, and why you get up every day.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Fatimatu Nuchemo, AfriJet Director for Cameroon. AfriJet is a Gabonese airline that covers 6 countries in Central Africa. And I'm also founder of the Young African Aviation Professional Association, a non-profit organization created in 2014 to advocate for the development and the spread of aviation and tourism culture in Africa. Because what makes me wake up every morning is the amazing thing of talking about Africa all the time. And by the way, I want to congratulate the MEDays team for this innovation. It's my first time. It's amazing to have Africa in Morocco today. And my dream is to see how in our different geographical diversity, we can seize the reboot or the relaunch of COVID to work for the benefit of Africa. So through my non-profit organization, we put a platform for the stakeholders to address the young Africans, especially those in the sub-Saharan Africa, to benefit from the fields of tourism, hospitality, and aviation, which is essential for job creations. And it's my belief every morning that if we get young Africans busy with job creations, we will have the beginning of the end of the wars. So crisis will stop when people will get busy, developing, improving their health, because much has to be done here. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Xavier, your turn. Title and...
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Xavier Titelman. I'm an aviation consulting. I work in a company. I work with lots of French and European industry, also with the operators as the airports and the airlines. And basically, I love looking at the future. So I work in prospective industry. So what will be the future of transportation in 10, 15, 20 years from now? And I also love doing sustainable aviation a reality.
Amazing. Ali.
Hi, guys. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ali Ben Al-Madani. I'm the CEO and founder of ABL Aviation. ABL Aviation is 6 offices worldwide. I'm based in the New York office, which was our first office. We lease aircraft, so our business is to lease commercial aircraft to airlines. So might be A350, 787, so we don't do small planes, we do mainly commercial planes. A fleet of about 57 aircraft, about $4 billion of assets under management. Technical team in-house, we lease to people like American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Iberia in Spain, for example, Ethiopian Airlines in Africa. So those kind of airlines that we lease airplanes to worldwide. We have an office in Casablanca as well. We are the only African lessor to lease aircrafts. And we are very proud to be an African lessor as well. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you, Ali. And just to start, I want to mention something that Fatimatu and I spoke about earlier, which is just how important the tourism industry and the aviation industries are for the global economy. Tourism is a major global economic growth driver, and it also fuels other sectors like retail, for example. None of these will be operational without the aviation industry. So I think it's really, really important that people stop looking at tourism the way that many African countries or officials usually do, and to start seeing just the opportunities in these sectors. So with that, I want us to walk through a little bit of an assessment of what happened to all of these sectors and industries through the pandemic, what were some of the biggest challenges, and what were the opportunities and silver linings that you have found. Raul?
Yeah. First of all, I think a lot about the pandemic and our sector, and I think that in the history of humanity, I don't can see any economic sector with the huge impact that we had during this period. From close to 100% activity to zero during many, many months. No, I don't remember any sector in the history had been terrible for our sector. The good news is that the people want to travel more than ever before. I think that the sector is stronger than ever. This year, clearly in 2022, the first half of the year still had been very complicated with Omicron, but the second part of the year had been a very strong year for worldwide. And I think a good example is Sri Lanka. We arrived in the country 1 year ago, and the country is in bankrupt. They don't have any currency. They have big problems, and I think the economic problems are coming because the tourist sector is not helping them. No, remember that the tourist sector represents worldwide close to more than 10% of the total GDP. That means that in terms of employees and also the activities is very important. No? I think pandemic have been terrible, have been amazing, a huge problem, but the situation now seems that is very positive.
So I'm going to speak most often briefly, but I will want every participant to take into consideration that I will be talking as a professional in a company that suffered from COVID, and at the same time as an advocate of the development of the three sectors we are mentioning today. So pre-COVID, I was advocating for the sub-Saharan African countries to get support from Northern African countries like Morocco that has a successful development based on its tourism. And the young ones were very active and were already interested in coming to study, practice, and come back to implement in their respective countries. Then unnoticingly, COVID came up. Now, we were already talking about the gap disparity on getting qualified manpower, finding new innovative methods to get the young people employed, that COVID came in. So what happened now, within COVID, we then realized what we were talking about, because aviation is not only about the commercial, we have cargo. And we have the African Union Agenda 2063 that later on went in with the single African air transport market, and then the ZLECAF. But my question I've always had is, how do we do it when we don't produce a screw in Africa? So having this pandemic has actually brought us in a phase where the crisis we went through and being saved by cargo that could go the long way to bring the mask, the vaccines to all the populations is just a key indicator of the fact that aviation still stands as the pivot for all development. Because I want everyone to imagine if we did not have aviation, if we did not have cargo during the pandemic, what would have happened? And if there was no technology to even exchange and talk, what would have happened? Now, this is an example of unforeseen circumstances that could happen tomorrow. What if we are talking right now and by the time we go out, because I remember myself sitting in Addis in a conference when they started saying countries are closing frontiers. For us, it was unrealistic because it had never happened. We had never heard of such. But it took us 2 years to do that. So company side, Afrijet closed down without preparation. Everybody has a short-term, medium, and long-term plan. But no one was prepared for the pandemic. No one was prepared to lose the job or to be on the standby. So the company was faced with a situation of, how do I protect my employees by making them believe in the future? Because we must admit we all went through an anxiety and uncertainty period. Many people thought it was the end of the world. Now, COVID is behind us, I will say, and it has taught the whole world that no one controls what's going to happen. But how do we as Africans put priority to the tourism, aviation, and hospitality sectors? Because those were the ones that overnight got shut down. And this has been, for the past couple of months, the questions that most of the young people who follow me on what I've been doing have been asking me. And I tell them, this is the best opportunity that Africa has gained from the rest of the world to redefine the collaboration, cooperation with the external continents, but also within the continent, as I will give a quote from a famous South African, the president of the Southern African Airlines Association, who always tells me, to do is to be. No, to be is to do. To do is do it now, because tomorrow is uncertain. And I always quoted things he told me that because we have to do it now. So sitting here in Morocco, that I really appreciate and thank His Excellency, the King, for giving us this opportunity, we should set the example right now. Let us try to get to know the others, because as Africans, we don't know ourselves. I can tell you this because I have gone across the 54 states and I have representations in all countries. So we just try to get the next generation, get the right mindset on rethinking about this aviation, thinking about this tourism. Because through tourism, we have the medical, we have the business. You can name all what tourism brings to you. So we need to redefine these positions to give the opportunity, even the educational. You can find a number of people from sub-Saharan African countries coming to Morocco to study and vice versa. We need to reinforce this because that is bridging the gaps and getting the younger ones, get the best practices, create job opportunities that will effectively get us out of the crisis we are going right now. If Africa is in pain, it's because the young people have no vision. Or if the vision exists in the hands of some few, it is not known by the majority, which is the population that is down there. The underprivileged, those in the rural areas, and those who just think they have no hope. So it's time for us to think about it.
Thank you so much. And we'll definitely talk about how we can develop that vision and that mindset for African youth. But Xavier, I wanted to also to make sure you give us a little bit of an assessment of your company, your work, and aviation industry.
Well, in my vision, in the beginning, it was the end of the world. And according to everybody, it was the time for the airlines just to shut down and never open again. And we don't care if it costs, we don't want to spend billions saving them. But the fact is that, and lots of people hopefully realize it, we have to save them because they will be needed. First for cargo, as you said it, but for the rebound, for creation of value, for the growth that we will have after the pandemic. And if we had lost those capabilities, these aviation capabilities, we wouldn't have the rebound and the growth that we see right now. And so finally, it costs money to save those airlines, but the wealth and the growth that they allow right now is much higher than what they cost as when we had to save them. So in my point of view, the COVID was an opportunity to show to everybody that despite everything that we can say about aviation, regarding the pollution, for example, the sustainability, we have to save the aviation, and the aviation sector is a way to have sustainable growth for the next decades, and Africa is one of the places where the growth is the highest.
Highly assessment, and then I want to ask you more
Sure.
on your company.
Well, as an aviation specialist and a lessor, sorry, it's working now?
Xavier, can you give him yours?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. As an aviation specialist and as a lessor of aircrafts, I think COVID was an uncertain situation. In a period of few months, you had all of the airlines sitting on the ground with no aircrafts flying. That's something that we never saw before. Like we had 9/11, we had the Gulf War I, Gulf War II, we had the financial crisis, and it was every time we had SARS, and every time it was one region of the world that was stopping, that wasn't working. But for the first time ever, and I know I'm still young, we had the whole world stopping, which was, we never saw that before. So we had people on the 15th of March that took the view that the world is stopping, and that just say that we're in a bad position, we have to cancel all the leases, etc. And you had the view like us at ABL Aviation who said, okay, this is the best opportunity we'll ever have in a lifetime. You are going to have a lot of airlines that are going to have assets on their book that we can go and buy those assets and lease it back to them and help them to go to the crisis. So I understand when you say you have some government that's helped, but that's not the role of the government to, even if they have to support an airline, when it's privately owned, should support itself. It shouldn't be supported by a government. And you had a lot of examples in South America, in North America, in Europe, where you had like the Ryanair, the EasyJet, the Wizz Air of this world that didn't get one penny of government support, and that came out even stronger after the pandemic. How they managed that is they took whatever they had on balance sheet, they did a sell and lease back, they leased from people like us, even like Delta Airlines, and they didn't take money from governments, they didn't take any of the taxpayer money, and they were able to support the growth of the company, and they became some of the strongest, if you take Wizz Air, for example, they became some of the strongest airline after COVID. That's the first point. So my view is taxpayers should not be supporting airlines. Airlines, if they're private, I'm not speaking about government airlines, I'm speaking about private airlines. If private airlines are going to a hard situation, they have aircrafts and metal on the balance sheets that they can sell and lease back, and they can export cash out of that, and they can be supported. That's to answer the first point of the argument. The second point about what were the opportunities during COVID. People need to fly. Cargo is part of it, but I know that you said that cargo boomed during COVID. The cargo markets, like you take any 737-800, any 777, they're all being converted from passenger, especially the 737-800, to cargo, to fly cargo. But what people forget is that most of the flying of an aircraft, the whole belly capacity is a cargo. So the moment people are flying again, all that new supply that we supplied of cargo is going to be destroyed. So we're going to have a whole market of cargo that's going to be destroyed because there was an oversupply during and after COVID. All the 737-800 that were converted should never have been converted. And therefore, today we have an oversupply of 737-800 cargo because of the belly capacity. That's that's the second point about the cargo. On your last question about Africa, look, we're the only lessor in Africa. I love aviation. I did aviation all my life since I was 22. I love aviation. That's what I live for. That's what I wake up for. But the problem in Africa, as the only lessor in Africa, is that there's a mismatch between expectation of airlines and what the markets can offer them. When I go to lease aircraft to LATAM in South America, to JetSmart in South America, etc., I factor a country risk. I factor a region risk. People in Well, unfortunately, as an African, I can say that people in our continent are refusing to add that country risk premium that we need to add to lease. They want to have, to give an example, in Air Djibouti or something like that with two 737-400, I think they have right now, they want to have a 787. So they don't want to do the steps that everybody did. They want to jump straight away to 787. They want to jump straight away to new technology, which is very good for ASG. But it is, commerce-wise, it's not feasible. I hope I answered your 3 points.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to double down a little bit more with your company just to sort of understand some of the optimistic numbers that you were sharing with me earlier. So Ali, you shared that during the pandemic, you actually doubled your fleet. You've made more profits and revenue and actually got out of the pandemic much stronger. So we got out of the pandemic and stepped into a financial recession effectively. So I want to know, how have you been able to weather the storm, and what advice do you have for other airline companies?
Well, let me say something about what you just said. We're not in a financial recession. Like, you can, interest rates are higher. We tripled the cost of debt, if you want. We went from 2.5 to director in the US to 7.5 at the Fed, but that's still not a recession. A recession is if you have 2 consecutive quarters of of decrease, that will be a recession. We're not in a recession yet, and I hope we will not be in a recession. It will be a slowdown of the GDP, but not. I'm speaking worldwide, but I don't believe personally that it should be a recession.
But some scholars are saying that we stepped into one, but it's all good.
Okay, I'm optimistic, so I hope we're not getting into a recession. If not, we are going to have a big issue worldwide. The question that's about the market today in a recession, we were able to double the fleet because airlines that were very well managed, like Delta, for example, were able to go to Delta Airlines and, as an example, and take 8 aircraft out of the fleet and lease it back to them on a 15-year period. And that got cash out for them. That's the first point. So that was a very smart decision by Delta Airlines. We did the same thing with American Airlines. We did the same thing with Alaska. El Al in Israel, now we have 6787. We became the biggest lessor to El Al in Israel with 6787-8 and -9, a mix of -8 and -9 that we have with El Al. So COVID was very good for us. That's the first point. Speaking after COVID, we have an inflation. Yes, we don't have a recession, we have an inflation. We have an interest rate that is going up. With interest rates going up, we have a cost of debt that is going higher. With the cost of debt that is going higher, we have a power of the middle class of purchase that is going down. That's what we fully agree. So therefore, the ticket cost is going to go higher. The cost of buying aircraft, the cost of buying assets is going to go higher. That's the first point. Speaking about aviation, you have things that are even worse. You have cost of debt that is higher. That means cost of asset that is going higher. You have cost of fuel that is going to the roof. But in addition to that, 1/3 of the cost of an airline is the cost of fuel. The other third is the cost of the manpower. And with the inflation, the cost of wages is going to go a lot higher. So for an airline, what we're going to see, and we see it already, the cost of tickets is going to be multiplied by 2, by 3. If you take New York, JFK, Casablanca on business class, we're almost at $10,000, which it used to be like $2,000, $3,000. So the cost of tickets are getting multiplied by 3. Just to take that as an example, and I'm sure as Barcelona, you see that's when you have tourists coming, and the cost for tourists to come to Morocco is much higher than it used to be. Therefore, we see more middle class than lower class that are coming from France and other countries to Morocco. The opportunities that are going to happen based on this inflation cost is the hedge of inflation is assets. And it can be an aircraft, it can be a ship, it can be real estate, it can be, a classic car. The hedge of an inflation is hard assets. And what we're going to see in the next few months, whoever is cash rich that cannot or doesn't need debt financing, because the cost of debt is going to go to the roof, people that don't need debt financing are going to do amazing opportunities in the next 24 months. Because the cost of assets is going to go down. The banks worldwide are not going to finance at competitive rates. Like I see when I want to finance an aircraft, I used to finance an aircraft at 2%. Now the cost of finance is 5-6%. I'm speaking about new assets, not midlife assets. So whoever is cash rich is going to kill it in the next 24 months, to answer your question.
That's usually what happens during a financial recession.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said that's usually what happens during a financial crisis. Whomever has the capital.
But not recession, we say crisis. Thank you.
Debatable. Xavier, I want to continue talking about the opportunities in these sectors today. And you talked a lot about digitization. Can you walk us a little bit through what opportunities have risen through digitization? How can companies, and as a consultant, how do you recommend that companies move through more rapidly with digitization? And are there other tools, resources or strategies that you recommend to your clients?
I won't give brands, but there are lots of them and lots of solutions. If you just look at optimization your operations, you can reduce the time on the ground. So, of course, when the plane flies more, it gives more benefits. You can improve predictive maintenance, for example, to reduce the cost of ownership and the maintenance, basically. You can reduce the fuel consumption, because when you look, for example, at the weather, the humidity of the air, the density of the air, you can adapt the thrust of your engine and reduce the fuel consumption by 5%. You can save tons of CO2 per day for each plane thanks to big data. So if you just look at the aviation sector, in the next few years, they expect to save and to earn more money thanks to the digitalization than thanks to the growth of the passengers. So this is a main move. And on the other side, you have, of course, all the capability to sell the tickets more easily. So you reduce basically the price of the commercialization of your tickets, and it compensates a bit the increase of the cost of the plane themselves and of the fuel, of course. So basically, thanks to digitalization, you can expect, of course, the plane of the ticket will not keep going down. We've divided by 4, by 5 in the last 50 years. It will have to go up for many reasons, but thanks to digitalization, it won't go as high as it should if we just looked at the evolution of the assets.
Amazing, thank you so much. And Raoul, I want to direct this question to you. I would love for you to walk us a little bit through the luxury travel component within the hospitality industry. How has that been affected? Are there any silver linings today as far as luxury travel goes? And would you say that there are specific countries in which you run operations that have weathered the pandemic better? Are there role models, countries that are inspiring that you can think of as far as the hospitality industry goes?
Yeah, I think that after pandemic, I think that the people is ready to spend more money. That means that the luxury travel is growing faster than the rest of the market. But probably we must to see different situations in different parts of the world. Probably when I talked previously about the experience, I think in a more mature market, the people is looking for less thinking in accommodation, more in the experience. Probably in other more countries that are in another phase that are not so mature, probably they need to have a more stable standards that when you travel and you stay in one hotel, you know that they have the minimum standards. And probably that's what you are looking for when traveling some different countries. No? I want to talk a little bit about 2 points, about the recession crisis discussion and about digitalization. No? About the crisis and recession, I want to see if he's wrong or he's right, because I expected in the last couple of years that the real estate, the hotels, decreased the prices. But at the moment, it's not the reality. We had not so in the market any discount in real estate. And to be honest, at the moment, all the data that we have for the next future is quite positive. We don't see a big reduction. We see better figures than 2019 in the bookings that we have. And it's a little bit strange because everybody's talking about recession, everybody's talking in a very negative way. But at the moment, the data, all the figures are quite good. No? And in the US, we have a very big exposure. And we see that in the theory, US is under recession. 2 quarters with negative GDP. But at the moment, the number of bookings is better than 2019. About digitalization, I normally try to think in different blocks, in different ideas. One is in terms of revenue. I think that we must to introduce more technology for try to adjust the rates to the market. At the end of the day, is how we can balance with supply and demand. We are introducing, for instance, the weather forecast for try to change the rates. In the other hand, I think I see how we can improve with digitalization the cost and to be more efficient. But I think that we have on other ideas is in terms of customer experience. For instance, we are working with artificial intelligence for try to do predictions before the customer arrives to the hotel, which is the valuation of this customer in our hotel. And if we see that the valuation will be bad, we try to change the experience. No? And also, for instance, we try to see all the calls to the call center for try to see if they're good or not, and we introduce learning machine for trying to see how is the experience in the call center. No? And also I think that we can introduce technology and digitalization in the relationship with the employees. I think that we have a lot of ways to use the technology for improve the results.
Actually, if you can keep your mic, I would like to ask you specifically about what kind of customer experiences are showing up today that you didn't notice maybe pre-pandemic. What is your customer walking into a Barcelona hotel today requesting? Are there specific sustainability needs that need to be taken into consideration? Are people staying more in hotel resorts by the beach versus in cities because they learn to value time alone? I'm really interested in sort of seeing how the hospitality sector has been taking into account all of the psychological, social, cultural changes that globally we had to go through.
To be honest, in my perception, is that the pandemic had introduced a faster speed to the trends that they had before. Sustainability, of course, I think is quite important because I think the people is more worried about the health. I think open space is quite important, that like you can see, we are also in closed space and nothing happened because some people told a couple of years ago that never will recover mice, no? Say why we don't, we'll have meetings, events, congress. I think obviously still the corporate, the business travel is a little bit less strong than the leisure, but is increasing. And I think that not many people talk, but I think it's very important. For many countries, the weather, in particular the sun, is very important. I remember a conversation with a person from Alaska, and I thought in Alaska, like a very, very cold country, you know? And I asked about the cold, no? And he told me, Rob, the problem is not the temperature, the problem is the light. We need light, we need the sun. And I think that during this period, we had not the experience of can to travel to more sunny countries, and they want to do that now, no? And I think the health reason to travel is more important than ever before.
Thank you. And I want to turn to both Xavier and Fadi to talk about the African consumer, specifically and the regional consumer. What do you think they look for in aviation? Is it a better and easier connectivity? Is sustainability something that the African consumer considers as well?
Okay, so I always speak on the African realities, and I just want to break the ice because I'm seeing some people just looking. Maybe they listen about the figures, they were lost. How many of you here are students? How many? Oh, okay. So the majority, I see many behind. So I understand that you're a bit lost with some figures, right? Now, how many of you have been to any of the 6 Central African countries? Cameroon, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Central Africa Republic. No. Okay. No, I'm talking about, okay, so you are young Africans. You are the next generation. And the reality is, I don't know how much you appreciate your country, Morocco. I guess most of you are from here. But you are a role model for most of the sub-Saharan African countries. And if I want to take myself back into the reason why I'm here is to talk about how we can get in the innovation on trying to get Africa as a whole, because that's the spirit of MEDays. Africa, bringing Africans together to talk about our realities and talk about innovative solutions that will bring us to the long-term priorities. And I'm going to take it very low. An average African sub-Saharan doesn't earn $500 US. So first of all, tourism is not part of his agenda. It's not part of the cultural spirit. And most of the people, just before we came up, I was given a practical example of a current situation ongoing in Chad, where because the aviation industry has not yet succeeded in Africa to give a deep understanding of its role with the negotiation of the approaches of private individuals and governments onto making it sustainable. The understanding or the comprehension of aviation by the governments in Africa is still erroneous. So I reach out to the aviation professionals to say, please, like Ali, teach them more to understand that aviation is not luxury. It's actually a catalyst for the development. Because I will take my case. For me to get here, I left Cameroon to Casablanca, and we stopped in another airport. Unfortunately, I didn't get the name before we got to Tanger. I will be leaving on Monday simply because I can't leave on Sunday. There are no connecting flights. And I will do Tanger, Casablanca, Abidjan, Abuja before Douala. Now, we talk with developed countries. We talk with the USA. We talk with the European Union. They have the funds that they always attribute to support Africa. So I tell them what we need, the intracontinental mobility, where I want the young Moroccans sitting here to have a great sense of appreciation. I'm not saying that you should be limited with what you have in your country, but until you see what is in your brother's country or your sister's country, then you can appreciate what you have and then share the best practices. You best know that Morocco has been receiving a lot of other Africans from sub-Saharan Africa, and believe me, with aviation, I remember 12 years ago when I stepped into this industry, the youngest mechanics that I had in the airline had just finished studying in Morocco under the Moroccan scholarship to become mechanical engineers. Now, in 12 years, I can assure you that the government has not spent a franc in the tax to send the younger ones to be trained in that same Morocco, which is in Africa, to ensure that we build up a sustainable industry. Now, if we want to develop the hospitality and tourism, we need first to evaluate what our needs are. We need to communicate more. Royal Air Maroc is one of the top in Africa with connectivity. They go almost everywhere. And you have an excellent tourism board because here, tourism is part of your life. I come from a region of 6 countries where when you talk tourism, nobody is ready to come. I mean, they don't even know what is existing there. We are famous on Boko Haram, strike, Seleka, that's all. And do you know why? Because these young people don't dream. When they walk on the road that was started 30 years ago and that today is muddy, they don't see a project, a short-term, medium, or long-term plan telling them that road will be tarred. What do? They lose hope. And they don't know your own countries. So on the irony is, when I come to your country and see how it's constructed and built and people still sit and complain, I'm like, are we talking about the same Africa we say, the Africa we want? No. So that is my approach to say, before we get right up to having the officials talk, we should all now, act now, be more curious, reach out, understand what the massive population of Africa is going through. The reality is in 2022, while people are talking about billions, millions of young Africans still sit on the floor. That is our reality, and I can show you pictures because I go there and I see them. But what are the emerging industries that will be able to help most of these young people? Is the tourism. We talk about ecotourism. It's just to make them understand the appreciation of their cultural environment, their history, that will tomorrow be able to make people come to see how they live, how they feed, how they do their own things, and there it will be a source of generation of income. And for the bigger airlines, Royal Air Maroc, Ethiopian Airlines, please, Egypt Air, we don't just want the one-to-one transportation. No, we're talking about the single African air transport market. It has to be effective. And effectiveness is not only on how many do I carry. We are a fast-growing population with low income, but if we sit down and do partnerships, collaboration and cooperation, just as what Ethiopian is doing, or the success story with Eskai, if we multiply that, then we will be able to provide innovative solutions for the development of the 3 industries that are interrelated. So these triplets need our actions now, but the practical ones, why we leave the other leaders to take into consideration what needs to be done for the aircraft acquisition, leasing, and the rest, because the whole world statistics shows that skilled labor is lacking for the aviation industry. And my question to them last week was, when you know that in the future years, you are already lacking and will lack professionals, Africa is not preparing to build another OEM to construct new aircraft, but we have the young people. These young people in the globalization want to be part of this development. So let us train many more and get innovative cooperation attitude that will make us have more aircrafts with sustainable airline plans. Let us grow the industry because we need this mobility for hospitality to succeed, for tourism to succeed. If not, if the prices of fuel, leasing go high, with the low incomes or the loss of jobs of non-existing jobs for the real Africans, then these industries, I'm sorry, will disappear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Xavier.
It's hard to talk after that. Congratulations. So my first point is that there's a lots and lots of opportunities, and there are some very good examples in Africa. If you look at Rwanda, for example, regarding the drones, not just building the drones, but also operating them. The delivery, drones for delivery, is a reality in Africa before it was in Europe, for example, thanks to Rwanda, and lots of other countries just start doing it also. If you look at Morocco, look at how much employees and high-level employees, well-paid jobs work here. Of course, there's an integration with Airbus and with Europe. For example, you have Sapka, a Belgian company just opened a factory here last week. It's amazing. They're creating jobs related to high-tech, because here you have the high-skilled people with the right value, and it's not as far as if you go in China. So you have all the planets are, in French we said aligné, I don't know, aligned. Okay, it works in English also. Nice. So everything can work for some African countries, and they have to work together, and I'm sure you will be one of the leaders in the next few years for that. Now, if you look at the perspective for the transportation, the market itself, you know that you have the segmentation is basically in three huge parts. Half of the traffic, at least for Europe, is related to tourism. And tourism is going really well. And we are hitting the records, for example, toward North Africa, toward Greece, toward Spain. Last summer was the best summer ever on North Atlantic, for example. The best ever. So, in case the crisis still is a reality if you are going to Asia, because you can't fly above Russia, and it's a big problem if you come from Europe, of course. And so lots of countries still are closed in Asia also. But basically, if you look, even with fewer passengers, European airlines managed to save and make more benefits than before. Air France hit their record. They made more benefit now than before the crisis with fewer passengers, because they improved their efficiency, and they increased also the price of the tickets. But basically, this is a success. The second huge part of the traffic is related to family. About a quarter of the French air traffic, for example, is related to the need to go and see your family in Morocco. My wife is from Bulgaria. She has to go to Bulgaria every year. This is mandatory. This is 1/4 of the traffic, and this is related to the evolution of the demography, of the migration, so it works really well. So this one hits the record also. The third one, maybe the one with the highest value for the airlines, is related to the of course, business jets, business travel. This one was supposed to disappear. Mr. Bill Gates said in the beginning of the pandemic, 80% of the business travel will disappear. For that time, completely fake. He said, we won't have any conference like this one in the future because everybody will look at Teams. It's good for his business. But the reality is that if you want to sell something, it's better if you shake the hands of the buyer. Okay? If you want to learn something, you have to move, you have to see people. We will talk after that. This is what people need. Yeah. So now the reality is that the business travel has not recovered completely, but we know it will. And it will keep growing. And if we just focus on Africa, 10% of the African growth is related to the ability of to fly. So this is a main aspect of the development of Africa, for lots of very good reasons linked to tourism also, but also linked to the lack of ground transportation capabilities. And in the ecological point of view, if you can avoid creating thousands of kilometers of highways and using the air transportation, regarding the evolution of the aviation with the net zero emission goal, I'm sure that it's an ecological gesture to develop aviation instead of developing very expensive and very polluting ground transportation infrastructure.
That's very helpful and hopeful. Thank you for that. Raoul, you wanted to add something before we move on to Ali?
Okay. I want to say that when we talk about connectivity, I think it's very important. If you don't have connectivity, imagine how many people are ready to take 5 flights for coming to Tanger, to your country. It's few people. It's a very complicated. If you want to create demand for tourist sector, you need connectivity, but also for try to help to the global economy of the country. If you don't have connectivity, the country is losing a lot of opportunities. We have a small airline company, only 5 planes, and we fly from Madrid, Barcelona, Lisbon, Porto, to the Caribbean. Many of those customers are flying because they have direct flights. If you don't have direct flights, it's much more complicated to generate demand. And I also want to explain with the hotel industry. The hotel industry, I think, is a very important industry for many different sectors. Imagine the architects that they are designing the hotels, the construction companies that they are build the hotels, all the maintenance companies, all the suppliers, and also when the hotel is open, we have many local economy that is well affected by the hotels. I was thinking we have in Africa close to 4,000 rooms in 6 different countries. I was thinking in eggs for the breakfast and the lunch and the dinner. We spend per year more than 1 million eggs. If you don't have the hotels, you don't have this activity that are helping to the local economy. I say eggs, but it can be chicken, can be another kind of food, can be for the olive oil, can be for many different local products, because we try, at least in our company, to create a very local flavor in our hotels. We don't want to standardize our experience in all the hotels. We want to do, not to give to the customer a local experience. I think the hotel industry is very important for the many different economic sectors, and aviation, I think, is very, very important. Connectivity, if you don't have connectivity, it will be very difficult to grow the economy and very difficult to create tourist demand.
Thank you so much. Ali, I have a very specific question for you. So you've mentioned that you lease planes to El, which is the biggest airline company in Israel. And of course, I assume most of you and all of you know that Morocco signed a trilateral peace agreement between Israel, US, and Morocco a couple of years ago in December of 2020. And I want to ask you, has the peace agreement enabled your operations in Israel, or did that come before? And has it also contributed to the revenues that you collect in Israel? Has it been helpful, positive, stagnant? I'd like to understand that picture more. And because you're so good with numbers, if you can walk us through some numbers, that'd be very helpful.
Well, as the headquarters of the company is a US company, so we did those before the agreements between Morocco and Israel. We always had very good relationship. For us, it's business. And leasing 787, and I will be honest with you, I'm kind of proud of it as a Muslim from Morocco to become the biggest lessor to El Al in Israel, of course. It means a lot to my team, it means a lot to me personally. And that's meant, which I love this story, like Moroccan Muslim from Morocco, Jewish from Tel Aviv, and some of the debt was from New York in the Christian people. I said, 3 guys walk into a place and they can do a deal. And I'm very proud of that deal. I'm very proud that we became the biggest lessor to El Al. And as a Moroccan Muslim, that means that we can find solutions, business-wise at least, and make sure that we can lease 787s, -8 and -9 to El Al in Israel. That's the first point. So when I did the business, it was about business for me. It had nothing. Of course, I was very proud as a Muslim to make sure that we make that bridge. I was very proud to make sure that we go above the political tensions, and it was the same for them as well. And that meant a lot to my team. I think that is made of Muslim, Catholic, Buddhist, Protestant, Jewish. I think we have 15 nationalities in our team with different religions. So that meant a lot to us. And some of them play golf and are not religious, of course. But,
and what has it meant business-wise? And if you can give us some numbers.
Well, Boeing will not be happy about that, but let's say that the 787-8 is about, let's make sure that we don't piss off Boeing. It's between 120 and 150 million per aircraft. On the -8, on the -9, it's between 150 and 200. So money-wise, it's about close to $800 to $900 million for the 6 aircraft. So it was an important transaction for us, of course. But that was one of the transactions. We did 8 aircraft to Delta. We did Air France. We're getting 4 aircraft delivered starting next month to Air France, for example. We did A350s with Lufthansa. We did KLM. So we did Ethiopian with A350s. So at least we did 1 African. But we kind of don't care about who the lessee are, as long as we know that there's little credit risk that we can make sure that we can have our lease payments. That's the first thing. To go back to Africa and what can be done in Africa, credit-wise, it's extremely hard to, and speaking about connectivity, when you have an African airline that gets set up, and I get calls almost on a daily basis, being African and being the only African lessor, about people that have money and want to set up an airline. Setting up an airline is not about the money. Setting up an airline is about the knowledge. Setting up an airline is about knowing what you're doing. There's a saying in aviation is that if you want to become a millionaire in aviation, you have to start with $1 billion. So you have to know what you are doing. The problem that we found every time we were looking at African lessors, African airlines, the problem that we had is a lot, with all due respect with the African airlines, some of them are very well run, like AfriJet, of course, that's Mark is doing a very, very good job at that. But some of the airlines, when they get set up, the first thing that they want to do is to buy a brand new, beautiful Airbus A320 or beautiful 737 MAX or 787 or A350. And the manufacturer, Boeing and Airbus, are amazing at that. It's make them believe that it's the best idea ever to go and spend $50 million on a brand new 737 MAX or a brand new A320 or $55 million on a brand new A321, which is the stupidest idea, in my view, ever. Because the first thing you should do as a startup is lease aircraft. It's like if you set up a business selling pizza, and you go buy 10 brand new cars to deliver those pizzas. You never do that. You are going to go to lease them, so that you are going to have less of your cash going into that hard asset that is depreciating. So that's the first advice I would have given to African airlines. Then they will have, and I think there's kind of, with IATA, there's a big discussion about finding a solution for that, and this was going on for the last 5 years, I think, with the AfriXM, that is trying very hard to find a solution for African airlines to have a cheap cost of leasing. And look, I'm an extremely proud African, I'm an extremely proud Moroccan, but at the end it's business. If I have to choose between leasing an A350 to Lufthansa, or for the same price, leasing an A350 in Africa, with all due respects and all the love that I have for my continent and for my country, of course I will lease it to Lufthansa. Because the risk that I will take Air Mauritius. We were about to lease A350s to Air Mauritius. When they put themselves, they leased the 2 A350s to South African Airways, and they put themselves in bankruptcy. That's a hard situation, and that was Air Mauritius. Yes, there was no government guarantee, and I'm sure you're aware of that story. So if you put a brand new A350 in an airline like that, and you find yourself to have to reprocess that aircraft, configure those whole aircraft, and you have to understand that to configure a brand new A350 will cost you about $5 to $10 million, and lease it to someone else, you are destroyed. As a leasing company that will put a deep hole in your balance sheet. So as African airlines, and to create the connectivity, the first thing that an airline needs is planes. If not, they cannot do anything. But my advice to airlines in Africa is to not focus on that ego thing of owning the planes. Lease the plane, and of course it's good for my business, but lease the plane, but at the same time, because an airline job is not to own an asset. It's not to have a residual value hard asset risk. The job of an airline is to market the tickets. It's to sell the tickets. That's what the job of an airline is, not to own the hard assets. And going back to your point about the cost of real estate not going down or the cost of assets not going down, I think we didn't feel the impact of the higher interest rate yet. Because when you buy something, you buy it with debt and equity. And if the cost of money, the cost of debt, and therefore the cost of equity go higher because of the base rate of interest rate, whatever you can say, the cost of assets is going to go down because it's a basic supply and demand curve. So you are not going to have enough money to buy. You are not going to have enough supply of the lending community. Your cost of equity is going to go higher, and therefore you are going to have less and less cash available in the market. So you are going to have less and less demand for those assets, and then the cost of those assets, you take a basic supply and demand chart, the cost of those assets are going to go down. So we don't feel it yet in the hotel business, for example, in the aircraft business, but we are going to feel it in the next 6 months. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. On that point, around sort of the missed potential of African airlines and Africa in general, one of my favorite bittersweet stories, I guess, to share is how Sudan donated the first airplane to the United Arab Emirates. And we know where the UAE stands in aviation today, with one of the busiest airport in the world, and with airlines, premium airlines like Emirates and Etihad. So obviously it does take good governance and good leadership and initiative to develop the aviation industry. So before I turn to our audience, because I know they've been patiently waiting to ask some questions, on this specific point, if you can give me one sentence as a policy recommendation for governments and government officials and elected officials, just as brief as possible. Oh, yeah.
I think probably the first reaction is don't do anything and don't disturb, no? But I think the second probably is, I think connectivity, try to help to the airline companies to increase connectivity. And probably, I think that we will have a big issue with the staff, with the employees. We need to train and to teach the people and try to have a very good employees.
To the African leaders, limit the talks, give the opportunity to the future generations, include all age ranges, because today a 20-year African, 30 years African, 40 years African, 50 years African group from each country should be involved in the policy making to accelerate the integration of Africa. So we should now stop the talking and act now.
I could tell, let the demand lead you. Just follow the market. The market knows what it's important for it, where is the demand, and I think that most of the airlines don't follow the market and try to say, as you said, we want to have the best asset, the most exciting, because we want to equal the other ones, but the fact is that just rely on the demand and it will be great opportunity for Africa.
Well, when you say leaders, political or business, political leaders leave business alone. Like businesses know what, like, look, it's a supply and demand, as you said, exactly. Like the worst thing that we have is when politicians get involved in business. Like we have, as business owners, small or big, and as entrepreneurs, we have a lot of people that depend on us. We have a lot of salaries that depend on us. We don't sleep at night to make sure that we are taking care of those families, those salaries. So don't make regulation and try to control and change things. Just leave us alone. We're good at what we do. And I think the people that we support are very happy with what we do. And if not, we fail. And we don't want to support us. If we fail, we will take care of ourselves. And we will fix it again. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about building, failing. And that should be to the next generation. Don't be ashamed of failing. Like my first business failed. My second business was okay. The third business was very good. So be proud to fail. Fail is a lesson in life. And I know in Africa, we're ashamed of failures. Like, we should be proud of our failures. That's the first thing. And we should always The second thing, and we had this conversation before, in Africa, and speaking about business leaders and political leaders, we don't like criticism. We're ashamed of being criticized about something that's good. I want someone to tell me what I'm bad at. I want, okay, when we opened the Casablanca office, it was a big thing to change the mentality of our engineers in Casablanca to accept criticism. Criticism means how to be better. I don't want you to tell me that I'm perfect and everything. I want you to tell me that I suck. This could be done better. And that's what I expect from people to tell about our business. If you tell me everything is perfect, I will never improve myself. As a country, as a Moroccan, as an African, I should always be criticized to be better. Don't tell me what I'm doing good because I don't care. I want to know what I'm doing bad to improve. And that's what is extremely important. And we have a big issue as a culture to accept criticism and to take it positively. We should always take criticism positively. That I speak too fast, whatever it is. You should always take criticism positively. That's my view.
Amazing, and what a great way to open up to questions. So for our audience, if you have any criticisms for our panelists, we are ready for you. Thank you, go ahead.
Tumenta Kennedy, CEO of African Business Information Bank. Let's go with the critics. So you said government should leave the business people alone. And I think I criticize the business guys because in business, they go for profit. In politics, they go for majority. So let you guys in business go to politics and create the enabling environment. We just have to work together. Thank you.
We don't do anything about politics. We pay our taxes. That's what we're good at as businesses. And we support the politicians with the taxes we pay. And we have no knowledge of politics. What we know how to do is business. You guys know how to do politics. We let you do the politics and we do the business. But to support you guys, we pay our taxes so that you can be supported with all your ideas that you have.
So, well, yeah, I think you're right, but we are inefficient. We take the money, we redistribute them. Business does it better. Business could go and create enabling environment so we can work. What you are saying is that we need a new mindset. There is no politics alone and there is no business alone. All we need, we are all in the same ecosystem, and we need to be talking to each other to create environment where politicians stay long in politics and business people stay long in business. Thank you.
If I may ask something, I want to step in as a peacemaker. Yeah, because this has been the conversations ongoing in Africa where the politicians, the business people, and Africa is losing, right? What is being, to my opinion, is lacking is that the business people don't take ownership of what their business is and invest on educating the politicians on the impact that their business is giving to them. So we find a Pan-African ecosystem where the politicians just wake up and now technology is going against them, because we have all seen some countries on social media where the politicians come with bags of rice to say we are doing campaigns, and the young people carry the bags of rice and drive them away. So I want the business people with their respective industries, because they are the experts, to take time and do free advocacy, do short videos of education, because as I say in Africa, governments change like the direction of the wind, but the industry has to remain, grow, and be strong, because people go, the politics are there, but we have to teach them so that whoever comes in government realizes what we need. Because if we keep on saying, you do your thing, we do our thing, it will never work. Because the politician, we think, oh, by the way, we have competitors. We are not competing. At the end of the day, we have one continent with 54 states to save. If not, why we are doing this high up, I will still bring you the young people in some of the regions. And bet you me, I'm sure if you look at the number of sub-Saharan young Africans who are roaming your streets here in Morocco, you will see that they are all hoping to cross the ocean to go to Europe. And you are not realizing it, but the more you will be skipping to sit and innovate in the talks, the more Africa will kill itself. And there will be a switch of slavery. We used to talk about the physical slavery, then we will go into mental slavery. So we should find a way as business people to stand up. I'm not a big person, but I stand up to say we need to do something with aviation for the next gen, and I'll keep on doing it, whether people like it or not, as my own criticism. So I encourage everyone. Ali, I I will advocate to see you talk in most of the African panels, or even create an advisory board to the African Union, so that you tell these head of states who take decisions what you know as your expertise. Because they are not experts, but they just make assumptions, and that's where politics kills business, and business doesn't develop because of the politicians. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I was just trying to do a peacekeeping.
So the first thing that we should do, look, we never needed to open an office in Africa or in Casablanca. We wanted to open an office in Africa and Casablanca to change that. Like, we are Leicester, we are in 5 offices. The Africa office, we have no business in Morocco. We opened it just for the use of Morocco. We have 25 engineers in Casablanca that we wanted to give back something to Morocco, being Moroccan. We didn't need to open an office in Morocco. We have no income from Morocco. We have a big spending in the Casablanca office with no income. We decided to open Africa, and this is way before we leased with, in Africa, but we opened Africa to support the people and to change the mentality little by little at our level, small company. The second thing about what we can do as business people is to create jobs. What you said earlier, don't talk, do, that's what business is about. It's not talking, it's doing. So what we do is we create jobs, we give jobs opportunity, we give scholarships. That's what we do. You know, we bought the Wings Club here. What we do, for example, last month, we bought the biggest European aviation conference, which is ISTAT, I'm sure you're aware of, to Marrakesh. 1,500 sea-level of aviation in the whole world came to Marrakesh. How many leaders of Africa came to the conference? None. Well, if you consider the CEO of Air Arabia, okay. So the CEO of Air Arabia, CEO of American Airlines, CEO of Air France, those people came. So the problem that we have is that government don't want to, and we're happy to speak with them and spend time with them. But what you just said, I come to a minister of any African country and they will tell him, I will teach you about aviation. First of all, I'm too young, so I cannot teach anyone. Second of all, I am either too tall, too skinny, whatever you want. But you cannot walk into a minister and say, I'm going to teach you about aviation. He knows better than you. He just did aviation for 6 months, and he knows more about aviation than you ever know about aviation your whole life. So it's extremely hard. So that's where you have that big gap. So what you do is educate the people you can, motivate the youth of Morocco or the youth of Africa to be entrepreneurial in aviation and other sectors, to take risks, to accept failures, and don't let them be having... I grew up in Morocco. I left when I was 18. When I left Morocco, I had a delusion of Morocco. I came back, but I had to leave because I gave up. I had to fight so much as a young guy that I had to go to the US to have that belief of Morocco when I became older to come back to my country and believe in it again. So that's the biggest issue we have in Africa, is that the system makes you not believe in it, and you have to be, as you, extremely strong-minded to fight that system. But at one moment or another, you might get tired, and you say, okay, the only thing that keeps you going is when you see the youth, the next generation, some of them, even if it's 1 or 2, believing in what you are doing and changing their mindset. That's the only reason we do that. And I can tell you, we have a Casablanca office that lose money every day, that we never made any sale in Morocco, and we don't want, well, we're happy with not doing business in Morocco. The only way we're doing it is to support the youth of this country.
Now, Ali, I will open the doors for you, so you count me in.
That's amazing.
We have to fight for it. So if you have any challenge, I mean, you can follow what I do. I still say, until we act now, there won't be the change. So I feel you, I understand you, and we need you. So if you have anything, Sub-Saharan Africa, don't hesitate, reach out, and I'll be there.
And I guess before I see another hand, I see a hand, and just to kind of wrap up that point, Fatih, just give us 1 second. If you can just talk to us a little bit, since there are so many students with us today, about the NGO that you founded, and how can people reach out and find you and get in touch and maybe get involved with the NGO?
So the Young African Aviation Professional Association was founded as a platform of exchange, because I realized we don't know ourselves. And it's only by getting the support of the aviation stakeholders to enable these young people go from one country to the other that could enable them to see the realities of Africa, collaborate, get to know about the industry, raise awareness so that they will be sensitive, because we are I consider myself of the somehow lost generation. And I want to believe that if the future generations are already aware of our topics, and I'm really happy that we have a lot of young people here, don't do the same mistakes. Understand that the politicians and the business people have to work hand in hand, and understand that as Africans, you own Africa, and in all African, I mean the 54 states, you are a child of Africa. We've been hearing about integration. We've been hearing about the projects of the African Union, but we don't live it. So YAPA gives a platform of exchange where we bridge the graph between the next generation and the future, the stakeholders, the OEMs, so that they can directly be in contact. We say we inspire, we empower, we mentor, and we empower. So it's my belief that if we want to grow in tourism hospitality, we need to first talk. So Twitter, Facebook is not just to show your best pictures, no. Go in there, try to find the same passions with the future carriers, talk to them. If you're an aviation, tourism, or hospitality professional, YAPA is open. There is no fee. And by the way, I've been doing it with half of my salary and I don't earn much, simply because I've believed in the past 8 years that until we as Africans start to know ourselves, start to realize our similarities and differences, then we can effectively be the ones, when it will be our turn to rule, to say we have to change the norms. You should not inherit in 50 years what I inherited 3 years ago. Just a small. The African Civil Aviation Organization, a branch of the African Union, was celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2019. And Ali, there is a saying that you are never recognized in your own country. So don't bother if it's not progressing. I got the High Flyer Award of IATA 2019, which was the first award that IATA initiated. I had to talk to 1,000 professionals of the world aviation, and all my 3-minute speech of thanks was about Africa. I gave them a lecture of the fact that the present and future generations of Africans are ready to be part of any development that's going to happen here. Surprisingly, that same year, we were celebrating 50 years of the African Civil Aviation Organization. Airbus was celebrating its 50th anniversary. And I was doing a speech in Dakar. And it was short. I just said, count the number of aircraft that Airbus has in the air in 50 years, and count the number of African airlines that are not existing. Everything went silent. So I took an engagement to say, I'm going to raise these young generations to think different. If you don't want to become a stranger in your own homeland, you need to start cleaning from your bedroom. So you sleep on a bed, you get up, you dress it up. That's where discipline comes. And we should not have barriers. Once you are African, as I say, I introduce myself, I say, I am Fadi, I'm African from Cameroon. So everybody should be capable of saying, I'm African from, which is an indication of your village or your quarter. But you can't stand up now to say, by the way, I'm Cameroonian. No. If we are going towards the African, the one Africa, we definitely, and YAPA is open. We are open for volunteering. We want people to support. And if you have money, you can share, because we have young people who want to become pilots, engineers who write out to me every time, but I don't have the means. So if you can do, and I do it in transparency, I will want a Moroccan school to say how much it costs and get a Moroccan company or any company to say, I'm paying into this school 10 scholarships, but we're going to do it in transparency, because we also suffer from intellectual corruption in Africa, and that should be eradicated too. So everybody is happy to join YAPA. It's a platform, and I hope it will live forever. Thank you.
Amazing. Round of applause for that. Thank you so much. Sir, apologies. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists for a very interesting discussion. I'm the ambassador of Ireland to Morocco. I've been here for the last year. A question I've been meaning to ask since I arrived, and I think I have the perfect panel to answer this question. And coming from a small country, but one which punches above its weight in aviation and in aircraft leasing, as Ali will know. We see, speaking to the theme of rebooting tourism, hospitality, aviation, access, low-cost access is key. And when we look at how the low-cost sector has really been transformative in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America. So my question is why has that not happened in Africa? It has maybe in Morocco with the strong presence of Ryanair here, but it's not something, as far as I'm aware, that I see across the African continent. So very keen to hear from the panel why they think this hasn't happened and if they feel it should happen. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you again. Where do I start? Well, as you know, thank you for joining us. You know that's my wife being Irish, I have to be careful about what I say. And from Dublin, like you, of course. Well, Ireland, you cannot compare the two systems. So if you want, can I be, with all due respect for your amazing country and to Irish fellow, Ireland did something in the 70s, as you know, that was extremely efficient. They created double taxation treaties with about 72 countries. You guys were very efficient at that. And I speak about leasing, and then I speak about LCC. I'll answer your first question, and then your second question. We are two headquarters. Our European headquarters, of course, is in Dublin, 70 more companies in aviation. Another 40 are based in China, and about 5 are based in the US. But the biggest center of aviation is Dublin, or Shannon or Dublin. And as you said, you guys punch way above your weight, and you are good at that. Why are all those people based in Ireland, including ABL Aviation? It's tax-wise, with all due respects, fiscality is the most efficient in the world. You guys were able to set up a system that inside of Europe, we can have a very, very optimized tax system so that we don't have a double taxation treaty. We don't have, a double taxation with about 70 plus countries. So that's, thanks to previous governments, was very, very efficient, and we're very happy about that. And that's why we set up in Ireland. And of course, there's a minimum of decision-making that has to be done in Ireland, and there's a minimum of employees that we need to have in Ireland to have that system. Morocco was trying to do it at one moment with Casablanca Finance City. Personally, I wish it could have worked, because in the DIFC, as you know, there's 2 leasing companies, DAE, Dubai Aerospace Enterprise, and Novus. In Hong Kong, where headquarters as well, there's about all of the Chinese leasing companies. And then we have Dublin. Those are the 3 centers of aircraft leasing. There's nothing more. There's Air Lease Corporation in San Francisco, but that's in Los Angeles, and there's SCG in San Francisco, but don't count for that because the headquarters is in Dublin. So those are the 3 centers of tax optimization of aircraft leasing. That's why it worked in those 3 places, and it didn't work in Morocco. If you ask me, do I wish we can have the same thing in Morocco? Yeah, I would love that. I would love to move my headquarters to Casablanca. I would love, as a Moroccan, I love my country. I love the weather. Compared to the Dublin weather with all the aspects, I would love to live in Casablanca or Marrakesh. But the tax system of Morocco compared to the tax system of Ireland cannot compete. That's the first answer about why Morocco, Africa, cannot be at the same level as your lovely country of Ireland in aircraft leasing. To the second question about LCC, when you had the Open Sky Agreement, as you know, the Open Sky Agreements allowed most of the European airlines that you cannot compete with. You cannot compete with the Ryanair, you cannot compete with the EasyJet. Ryanair will kill you every day by lowering the cost until you die and then raising the price. So Ryanair, that is an amazing model. I'm a big fan of what you guys did with Ryanair. If you take EasyJet, if you take Wizz Air, speaking about the low-cost carriers of the main ones of Europe, are able to kill any operator in Africa if they do low-cost carrier. Because of the open sky, they can come to any airports, and I'm speaking with no political langue de bois, I don't know how to do that in English. I'm speaking honestly and fairly about this, because I believe that strongly. It's very easy to say why we don't have in Africa the same level of efficiency as a low-cost carrier in Europe. Yeah, of course we can't, because you guys can put 300 aircraft into Dublin-Marrakesh flights, and which happened with Ryanair, and kill the market, and lower the flights. Dublin-Marrakesh at one moment was, I think, $50. How can you operate a 737-800 for $50 between Dublin and Marrakesh? Like, any cost would not make sense. Then, I speak about Morocco, and when I speak about Africa on the low-cost carrier, we had Air Arabia that came from Sharjah and came to Morocco, and with A320s was able to fly between cities. If you see, they were doing A320s, which, if you speak with Adel Ali, the CEO, it was the most inefficient way to fly between 2 cities. Flying a jet aircraft between Rashidia, Casablanca, Oujda is the most inefficient way. But they're doing it for market share. So how do you want an African airline, whoever it is, with, let's say, a startup that sets up in Africa, that wants to do a low-cost carrier model with, let's say, 5 A320s, that the cost of that A320s per aircraft, per flight, is a minimum that they have to charge. Let's say the same route as Ryanair is doing is $250, $300. How can they compete with the $50 with Ryanair? So it's too easy to say why we don't have that. Of course we can have that. If we had, as Africans, an open sky treatment, of course we can go into Europe and kill a Ryanair. We wish we could do that. And I think Ethiopian is trying very hard to do that, but it's very hard for them to compete. Can we have an advantageous tax system in Morocco, well, or in not only Morocco, of course, as an African, any other African, Mauritius started to do it, you can't, because at one moment or another we get the pressure from Europe that say, oh, this is a gray zone, black zone, listed, so sorry guys, you cannot do that. They never will say that to Ireland. They never will say that to Delaware jurisdiction. But for us, as Africans, we wish we could have that advantage. So I hope I answered your 2 points, and with all due respect, and I hope you never tell my wife, as I just told you, that's between us, but Ireland is amazing for beautiful weather and very smart people. Let's keep it to that way.
So if I can add something, I work for an airline that has the best business model because we've gone for one aircraft type, the ATRs, and and that's why I'm part of the team, because my board chairman has a vision for the whole region, which is underserved. The biggest challenge we are having on really bringing down the cost of the tickets are the government with the taxes. And it goes back to what I said. Ignorance at times is the enemy of progress, because in discussions that are ongoing on making them understand that by removing some taxes, they will facilitate the regional integration and enable the people in our regions, we are about 40 million inhabitants, to also be part of the intercontinental free trade zone. It's something that we are telling them, and they are learning. That's why I'm saying, you love your business, go down and teach them. Because at times they just have the big picture of having the tickets. But when I tell them, I don't gain 10 euros on the ticket that I sell for 500 euros, they are like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, by the way, these are your taxes, these are your taxes, these are your taxes. More often, I'll take a practical example. I collect taxes for the civil aviation, for the air traffic system, for the airport authorities that I have to repay every week. And when I come to them to ask them an office to sell to collect those taxes, I still have to beg them. So I've told them that's why I say, until we educate them on understanding the ecosystem, they don't understand. So they expect me to collect their taxes every week, and I do. And they send me messages. Oh, by the way, you carried 20 passengers. You flew 50 passengers. I need my money back. So I'm the strong one saying, guys, you know what? Yes, but I don't even have an office with a chair. And even if I have an office and a chair, I spend money to collect your taxes. So we need to review the conversations and make things work efficiently. So I hope that with the strategy of educating and making them understand that aviation is the pivot of all developments, then we can dream to see the low-cost carriers, which is actually the exact business model for Africans.
Yes, I think that is obviously related with taxes, is also related with open sky, but I think there's another point that I think is very important, is timing. I can use one example. We arrived, our group, in Dominican Republic close to 40 years ago. When we arrived to the country, was in Punta Cana, in Playa Bávaro, only one hotel, 400 rooms. Now, in the destination, are open more than 70,000 rooms. It's the largest destination in the Caribbean. When we arrive, we have not any flights, not any possibility. You must fly to Santo Domingo, go by car, more than 4 hours on the road. No? Now we have every day more than 50 direct flights from US, from Europe to the airport. I think its timing is very important. You don't have the demand, probably the low-cost carrier, they don't want to spend a lot of money to invest for create the destination. They prefer to go later. That means that timing issue, I think, is quite important.
Just one word?
Okay, sounds good.
Does it work?
And maybe speak a little bit to the social impact you're involved with, just because we don't have a lot of time. So
Social impact?
Yeah, and
Okay.
the mission you're going on in December.
Okay, let's do it. So first, for low cost, a capability to create low cost means massification of the transportation. And since there's not a huge middle class in Africa up to now, we can't just rely on a huge number of people that should fly often. So now the business model for most of African countries just look like what we had in Europe 30 years ago. So it starts with you have to have high value passengers to pay high value tickets, and then slowly and slowly, I'm sure that 20 years from now, we will have lots of low-cost airlines in Africa. If all the political and, no, you don't believe it? 30 years. You need it now. Yeah. No, I'm sure there will be plenty of it in 20 years from now. I'm sure of it.
Now we plant seeds for the long-term results.
Yeah, and for long terms, it will be equal like Europe.
And I just wanted you to mention the mission you're going to
no, well,
in
it's not
December.
really related, but I'm working with Ukraine because
It is related. How would you get to Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, I work a lot. I have a YouTube channel. This is the first point. I've been working in open source intelligence for a couple of years, and with my community, I have 300,000 followers on YouTube, for example, and lots of my people of my community helped me create some very interesting videos. Well, people think they're interesting. It has my name, Xavier Titelman. In the beginning, I didn't expect to do anything with YouTube, so it just has my name. Yeah. So we made those videos, technical analysis of Ukraine, and more people said, "How can we help? How can we help people there?" And we made some fundraising, and we managed to buy some cars, and we fundraised about 100,000 euros to buy cars there. So I'm going to go in Ukraine next month to help them and to bring one car from Poland, where we bought them, to bring it up to near the battlefront, because people need cars just to bring food to the new liberated settlers. So it's bit of a challenge now, so let's go to
Thank
Ukraine.
you so much. Round of applause, everyone, for that, and for our panelists. And thank you, Ambassador, for your question. I think you ruffled up some feathers, which was really productive. I hope everyone took away some realistic assessments and long-term strategies and a new vision that they can take with them to their campuses, their companies and sectors and officials, so that we can reboot the three sectors and work towards more development and cooperation in Africa and the region and globally. Thank you so much for joining us. Round of applause for all of you.
Thank you for the animation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm moderating 2 panels again on Friday morning and afternoon. So I hope I can see some of you again then. Thank you so much. Take care.